Hello, I'm Delta David Gier. I'm absolutely delighted to be in Modesto conducting your orchestra. I'm doubly delighted to be a candidate for the position of music director. The choice of Shostakovich's Fifth Symphony was mine. For me, it's a very personal piece. I actually got my start as a very young conductor living in Eastern Europe. I had a Fulbright. I lived in Bucharest, Romania for 2 years. And during those 2 years, I conducted all over that part of the world, from Poland all the way down to Turkey. I should also mention that that happened to be the last year of communism and the first year after. So I can't say that I suffered under the communist regime, but I witnessed it. I lived it. I did stand in line for bread with these people. So when I started playing Shostakovich's music and getting deep into it, I realized that he was actually giving voice to a people, an entire people, the people of Russia, that was suffering under the Soviet regime. It affected me very, very deeply to do this music. So Shostakovich, he lived and died underneath the Soviet regime. So you come to his music realizing, okay, it's a Russian composer, but it's such powerful music. There's a dark beauty to it, but inevitably people come away asking the question, what does this music mean? He didn't tell us what this music meant. He didn't write about the meaning of the music or even the inspiration of this music, but it's so powerful. So you have to ask yourself, well, what does it mean? There's some controversy around this, I have to say, but we do have accounts from people who worked with Shostakovich, like the cellist Rostropovich, for instance, who did have personal relationship with him. We have this book called Testimony by Solomon Volkov, who claimed to have a very close relationship, kind of assistant relationship with Shostakovich, and wrote this book Testimony, basically saying that Shostakovich was writing this music kind of subversively, living under the Soviet regime, but undermining it to an extent, and giving voice to the suffering of the people, the Russian people. I tend to agree with this. Like I say, there's controversy about the authenticity of Volkov's relationship with Shostakovich. But again, you listen to the music and you know immediately that this music is just pregnant with deep meaning. It's so powerful. For me, just witnessing what these people were living with, standing in line for bread with them day in and day out, seeing empty shelves in the stores, and the fear, the level of fear that the Romanian people were living under. This was Nicolae Ceausescu, who was the dictator who was in Romania at the time. The constant fear that these people lived under. It gave me a little bit of a window. So when I get into this music and interpreting this music, it's very difficult for me not to bring this to it. And I do believe that it actually brings a depth to the interpretation of this music. Also on the program is the Leonora Overture No. 3 of Beethoven. So this is an overture that was written for his opera Fidelio. The opera Fidelio was actually a reworking of a previous opera called Leonora. Why? Well, Leonora is actually a character in the opera who, in rescuing her husband, Florestan, who's been imprisoned unjustly, takes on the character, a male character named Fidelio. And it's a metaphor. The entire opera is a metaphor for freedom from oppression. So you see how Shostakovich, Beethoven kind of come together. it's this trajectory that Beethoven often used of darkness to light, and it starts with in the dungeon with Florestan in the dungeon, and it builds throughout, and it's one of the most satisfying overtures to listen to, because it ends in a blaze of glory, and it's music from the opera of liberation, liberation from oppression, liberation from imprisonment, political overtones all over the place. So very, very interesting music, wonderfully crafted, very, very powerful on both ends, the overture and the symphony. And then we have this cello concerto in the middle of the program by Arturo Márquez. Márquez is a very well-known composer in Mexico and around the world, particularly his Danzón No. 2, which has become quite famous the world over. Actually, I happen to know the Modesto Symphony played it relatively recently. And a lot of Márquez's music is based on dance, Mexican dance. It's very folkloric in its basis of composition. But the cellist is Francisco Vila, and I've worked with Francisco before. Francisco is originally from Ecuador, and he is a Sphinx artist. What does that mean? Well, the Sphinx organization is a 25-year-old organization based in Detroit, and its mission is to support and promote classical musicians of color, African American and Hispanic in particular. And they have programs from very young all the way up to competitions for very accomplished artists, of which Francisco Vila is one. So Francisco has played with me before, and we built community engagement programs. Actually went into a meatpacking plant, and where Francisco played for the workers there, and spoke Spanish to them and played Bach. So really, really quite wonderful. So when I was engaged to come to Modesto, I thought, well, what a wonderful opportunity to bring Francisco Vila to this community, for you to get to know Francisco, for him to get to know the community, and maybe the relationship can grow from there. All right, Francisco, it's great to see you.
You too.
Yeah, so it's been a long time. It's been about almost 3 years, I think, since we
Yeah,
last saw each other and collaborated, right?
that's right. Yeah, at least 3 years since we've seen each other in person. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. So we did Lalo together, and it was a really great musical experience. So we've been looking for an opportunity to play together, and I'm just so glad that Modesto thought that we would be a good match. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really happy about that. And to play this piece that isn't often played, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but it's sort of similar in flavor to the Lalo Concerto in that it has Hispanic flavor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. So I'm trying to remember. You must have been the one who suggested the Marquez, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And is it a piece you've wanted to do for a long time, or did you just know the composer, or how did that come about?
Well, he's someone that is a living composer of Hispanic heritage who's very well known in our region, basically. He's sort of one of the larger names, more well-known names rather. And so I'm always looking for things to play that are more or less outside of the standard repertoire, because it's challenging, and I know that they're not often played. They haven't made it into the standard repertoire collective yet. So I realized that he had written also a sonata and this cello concerto, which was commissioned by Carlos Prieto. Carlos Prieto is a very well-known Mexican cellist,
Yes.
and so I thought, well, let's see if it's often played or not. And there are only two recordings, as you know,
Yes.
of this piece,
Right.
and one from back in the '90s, I think, where someone's playing it, and then Mr. Prieto's recording.
Right.
So it's a unique opportunity, right? I mean, to
Yeah.
be able to play something like this. It's fresh still.
Absolutely. So Marquez is known mostly for his Danzón No. 2.
Yeah,
and that's the one I believe I saw that Modesto Symphony has played this relatively recently, within the last few years.
right.
The Dunzo
Yeah,
#2, and actually I just performed it less than a year ago myself.
yeah.
But as you start to dig into Marquez and a vast amount of repertoire he's composed, for me he falls directly in 100 years worth of Mexican musical history. They going back to Chavez and Revueltas and
Yeah.
all of this. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think all of the language is there, and there are similarities, and I think that what obviously what some composers aim to do is to implement in their own writing some of the elements of popular music, right? Of their music from their own country. That's what I mean. And so many of the rhythms, a lot of the instrumentation is what one would imagine what you'd hear in popular music of those eras. And so I think it's a way of documenting for them, right? The colors of the music of their countries.
So let's talk a little bit about you,
Oh,
um,
God.
and your and your background. Of course, I know your story, but I think people will be very interested
Yeah.
to hear your background.
Well, I was born in Ecuador, and when I was 8 years old, my mother decided, after my father had passed away, my mother decided that it would be best to raise me up in the U.S. And it was basically upon arrival that I picked up the cello in elementary school, in a public school in Miami. Luckily, they had, a painting class, they had some kind of dance class as well, and music. And so I chose music, and and chose the cello because I guess at that age I thought it looked interesting, and it was the right size. It was probably, it was big, so I liked that. And and what was interesting is that I started learning basically from ear because I didn't speak any English. So I wasn't really picking up anything that the teacher was saying to me at the time.
Hmm.
And this was just orchestra class. So that's where I started to play the cello. And then once I think I had to go to university and make a decision about what it was I was going to follow, I think it was very clear that that was my passion, music and the cello in particular. And I had the tremendous opportunity to study with some of my favorite cellists,
Hmm.
who Janos Starker being the first, and who was a legendary figure in the 20th century in music. And then after that with Gary Hoffman, as I've been very fortunate to have had those influences as a cellist, um, because there was so much respect that I had towards them, and that just sets up such a nice relationship for learning, because you don't, you really taking information from these people who are the best at doing that thing that you're learning. So that was, I think, as a student, I couldn't have asked for a better education, realistically. And after that, I've started some projects that are interesting and fulfilling for me, like the festival I have in Ecuador, which invites about 40 young artists each year on full tuition scholarship to work with some of the world's known musicians, like Gary Hoffman and the Juilliard String Quartet and so on. And they play chamber music and receive lessons with those people for about 2 weeks.
It's great. Wow.
Yeah, and I really felt like that was something I needed to do because it would connect me to my country in a way that um, it connects my life experience here to that life experience.
Yeah.
So, and then it also beyond that, it provides really nice opportunities for young artists to meet those people and work with them. Something which isn't readily available there. To have that kind of a festival there is a luxury because usually they would have to travel to the U.S. or to Europe to have those type of master classes. So I thought it was really important to give South America a festival like that, which is so nicely located too in Ecuador. Ecuador is right in the heart of Central and South America, you know. So they come from all over the place. Each year there are about 11 different nations that are
Wow,
represented in the student body. Yeah.
that's
So that's
beautiful.
really my passion project, besides obviously my performing career, and I am never happier than when I'm on stage doing this. So
Well, and it's, I mean, have you been able to? I've seen some videos. I know the answer is yes, but the ability to perform concerti in particular with an orchestra over the last 2 years is severely limited. So you,
yes,
it's pretty exciting for both of us to be able to get
absolutely.
into the concert hall and
Oh
make
yeah,
this happen. All right.
absolutely. I'm really happy about this, and I'm gonna drive up. I live in San Diego, so I'm gonna drive up in my car and take my time. And I've never done that drive up north, so it'll be an opportunity to take all of those views in. And um, yeah, in the meantime, just keep practicing, keep practicing, and make it internalize it, as we said in the beginning, right?
Yeah,
But how
absolutely.
has it been for you, David, with the past 2 years and performing and so on?
It's I mean, it's so challenging, right? Like I was fortunate that in the orchestra that I've been with for the last 17 years, the South Dakota Symphony, that we were actually able to give concerts during
Yeah.
last season. We had to cancel the end of 19, of course,
Hmm.
but then we had to restructure everything, everything, and some concerts during last season were programmed like 3 or 4 times because like
Yeah.
we were supposed to start with a complete production of Beethoven's Fidelio. I mean, that was our participation in the 250th anniversary of Beethoven's
Oh,
birth,
yeah. No one got to do anything for
nobody
him.
got to do that. So what we did the six Brandenburgs of Bach. I mean, it's such a crazy embarrassment of riches that, oh darn, I've got to replace Fidelio with Bach. It's just great music. It's all great music. So that's the fabulous part. But there are never more than 20 people on stage.
Yeah.
So we had to do that throughout the season, and we tried to plan it in such a way that well, by the end of the season, surely we'll be able to have
Yeah.
a chorus on the stage and do Beethoven 9 at the end of the season.
Hmm.
Not, that didn't work. So
Yeah.
it's everything just continually scaled down, and so yeah, you just do what you have to do.
Yeah, and then of course all of this online teaching for me. I mean, and for you probably so many meetings that would normally take place in person or online, and that was something to get used to as well. I mean, we've all beat this horse to death already. We're talking about all of these things, right? Because we're 2 years into this, but it did change everything. It
Yes.
changed absolutely everything. I mean, having to hear somebody play through this setup is something different. I mean, it's nothing like being in person.
Right.
And so I hope nobody gets any ideas about, oh, let's do these things online now because it's so interesting.
I think we're well, I mean, I guess that's a hidden blessing in the length of this thing is that, like, I don't think anybody's in our world is anxious to see this continue, as any regular form of what we do. Oh my gosh.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I'm so thrilled that we're going to be able to be together in Modesto, that we'll be able to play with a wonderful orchestra and a fabulous concert hall.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to being there, and I just invite the audience to come join us on uh, on Friday and Saturday nights, and be a part of this magic.
Yes, please come join us. And it's, such a gift to be able to share this with audiences again. So I'm very excited and looking forward to being there with you and meeting new colleagues
Yeah,
and
indeed.
playing together. So,
Yeah, that's what we do. That's so great.
yeah.
So great. Well, I'll see you very soon.
Very soon, David. Thank you so much. Take
Thank
care of
you.
yourself. All right. Bye
You
bye.
too. So that's our program, and I'm absolutely delighted with the way that it's turned out. these three pieces going together, and I look forward to getting to know your orchestra and to them for the opportunity for them to get to know me. And let's hope this first date turns into a very happy marriage. Thank you.